Loose bat. We fix it by wedging some clay into the pins. All right. That's better. So right now we're just building up the walls, getting them all to the right thickness before we even start to shape it. Like a big mistake people make when they're learning how to do this is that they try to build the walls and shape it at the same time. And that's just too much. I feel the walls and I see the shape. So you get to a point where the pressure is less important, applying that pressure, and more setting your fingers to an aperture and then drawing that up the pot to make those walls nice and even. So now we get to the shaping. So the first thing we gotta do before we go anywhere else is make sure that this is the right size. Ah, near miss. Yeah, we want the ends of the calipers to sit like right in the middle of the rim because that's where we're gonna split it. So it's still just a little big, but it's gonna warp when we shape the pot anyway, so you don't need to worry about it too much. And then we wanna put the curve in it. I had a teacher in college who would always talk about the breadth of the pot. And I never understood what she meant until years later. She meant pushing out from the inside to give it the impression of like an inflated lung. So then we switch sides so we can reach in. Really give it breath. And this is the part I spend the most time on. I want this curve to be perfect. You know, clay is made up of all these little platelets suspended in water, and so much of what decides whether a pot survives all the drying and the firing and the shrinking is compression. You're always compressing the rim, compressing the floor. It all comes back to compression. So you want those platelets to be really packed in so as they shrink and expand, they've got somewhere to go. Nice, yeah, so that's exactly where we want it. All right, so we're gonna put a little corner in there. It's not necessary, it doesn't actually change the fit of the jar, but I just love those little angles. I just think it looks nice. I really love clean edges. And then, you know, before we take it off the wheel, we always want to check again. Make sure we're still there. And that's that. And that's the first half of a cookie jar. And then we make the lid. And then we come back and open them up to the edges. And it's tempting to go like right to the corners, but that's never a good idea. You always want to cut it in a little bit. A little bit of play in the lid is better than it not fitting. So we always throw the lids upside down. So I just throw these like chunky little lids and then clean them up down the road. But that's what we're looking for. It should pass right through the calipers. The best pottery practice is to always make 2 lids. Yeah, this one's going to be perfect. It's funny, as long as I've been doing this, I've always initially made lids too big. Like they always seem like they need to be so much bigger than they actually do. That's it. It's a little too small. There. And then we can shift gears and trim one that I've already got in progress. So we're gonna make a cookie. So some people will use like little balls of clay called lugs to keep stuff in place. But I like the cookie method, where we're just gonna stick it on a little puck of clay. I also just like saying cookie. So we gotta recenter it. We're just feeling for the spot that reaches out of the center. That's good enough. We need trimming tools. So you can tell this is like a little soft to be trimming because of the ribbons sticking back to the pot. It's not the end of the world. It's definitely still like well within the window, but I think a lot of people like to trim their stuff a little drier for that reason. You don't get into production pottery without learning how to trim a wet pot in a pinch. One of the things I always stress to my students is that, and it's so hokey, but it's true, like the most valuable tool is your hands. And if you can do it with your hands, don't use a tool. So you see a lot of people trying to like smooth and refine things with all these tools, but if you just use your fingers, you can get there too. And then I use a ballpoint pen to sign it, because it doesn't gouge the clay. I spent so much money buying all these tools to figure out like the best thing for carving the signature. Turned out to just be a big pen. I think I found that in the hallway. Yeah. So then the rim is pretty dry, the foot's still pretty soft, so we'll let this dry upside down for a little while. Go and grab some lids. And this is fun too, because like trimming is, you know, pretty delicate and precise, but trimming lids is just like, take the biggest trimming tool you can find and go to town. In the beginning, when you're leaving a lot of like excess clay in places, You always throw the inside and then trim the outside to match. Oh wait, we gotta use the rib. So we can smooth all that stuff away. I do this because I draw on my pots a lot, and when you have all those little nooks and crannies, the glaze wants to sink into them and it gives you kind of a fuzzy line. But if you have a nice smooth surface, then it's really easy to draw. And this is stuck. There we go. Let's see if it fits. Moment of truth. Yeah. Then we'll put a little handle across the top. Like number one rule of teaching pottery classes is don't make the obvious joke. Usually what I would do is make a ton of these and then use the best one. Once they've had a little bit of time to dry, we're going to accelerate the process though. So I'm going to rough up these surfaces so they blend together. Otherwise you get a really clean kind of fault line. And then as it shrinks, they pull apart. And get a little bit of water. And then I always like to go back and you want to look at it and make sure it looks okay from every angle. Because one time, 7 years ago, someone pointed out that a handle that I attached to a mug was crooked. The bottom was like an inch to the side. And that, I still have nightmares about that. Give it like a little lift. And then to make sure that they fit not just now, but forever, we're gonna let them dry together.